you used to have one person that kind of kept track of everything, or a handful of people that kept track of everything. And all of a sudden their time is divided and their energies are divided. And that's where you find that your systems that you thought were solid aren't solid. And you start having money fall out typically right away in your gross margin. And then all of a sudden you start throwing money at just about anything. You throw a person at something because that's the first thing, right? You think that's the first thing. And so those are the things that cause you to get stuck. A mistake in a bigger company, the larger you are, the longer it takes for that mistake to really become apparent and visible to you. We are learning these things as we go.
Right.
And you don't know that you need help until it's too late. I think it's that middle layer of supervision that I think is the biggest struggle. But you struggle in this industry in gaining credibility with a manager or supervisor that you bring in. Then Joe Montana is not necessarily, just because he's a great football player, is not going to be a great football coach.
Right.
And so it's not always your lead tech. Most people make the mistake in two ways relative to KPIs. So you either don't have the right KPIs, which is a constant struggle, and we even struggle constantly with making sure that we have the right KPIs, or you get them and you look at them and you don't do anything about it. Right. And that's a common thing that I think every company has, not just in our industry. So you really have to be diligent about it. And I think that's where complacency is probably your worst enemy. End of the month shouldn't come for us, and it's a surprise how it turned out in the week. And you should know by the time you get into the second week of the month, whether or not what the month's going to turn out to be. Once you get to winning the week, then you got to get it to winning the day. And that's where you're looking at all the metrics from the call center, right on down the marketing, call center, and field performance. And those are hard things to learn. You think you can do it, but I promise you, it's a lot harder than it sounds. It really is. And it takes good people and a commitment by you and the rest of your organization to get behind it.
Everything that John is saying, I think I've probably heard a couple thousand times as I built this business, which is the same thing, which is like you hit this point at around the 10 or 15 million where you can keep growing, but you actually don't make any more money for a while, which is weird because you're putting all that money back into building the management layer and the systems required to get to that next level where you can make money again. And that feels weird. And if you don't know what to measure along the way, you can really sort of mess it up, you know? And so what he's talking about absolutely resonates with me, in sort of where, you know, our business started, where we're helping people that are, you know, really growing to that next stage and want to do it quickly. And they're thinking about things like, you know, can those same people get me there? If they can't, what are the systems I need? Can I have one system that does it? Do I need to build a tech stack? What do I need to automate? What can I automate? What shouldn't I automate? You know, and it's interesting too, talking to customers about that, because some customers that I've talked to don't want to let go of that. But if you don't let go of some of the old stuff, then you'll get stuck and you'll start losing money, you know, at around that same mark. So yeah, I mean, it definitely resonates with me. I think around that 15 million mark and up, you know, operators are looking to automate stuff just because you start to lose control. And you know that what the job you used to do day in and day out doesn't get done like you used to do it. And so you have to automate some of this stuff so that you make sure every customer gets talked to, every follow-up gets made in the same way that's caring and deliberate, and you deliver that same service that you did at 5. Hard, extremely hard. I'm experiencing it too. And so, you know, you've got to think about automating that stuff in some way, but still making it personal, because you can't lose that either. And that gets harder as you grow. So
it doesn't take as much to fill your schedule when you've got 5 guys or 5 techs in the field as it does when you've got 25. That can be a huge task. You can't turn the knob on Google fast enough for that. Between text messages and phone calls, we're doing anywhere between 800 and 1,500 outbound attempts in a day right now to fill our calendar. But I would say that as you get bigger, it's how you treat your leads. And this is where, you know, like, you know, shameless plug for Chris's company. That's where like a nurturing every lead all the way through till the very end. You have to count on a certain number of leads from new customers, and then you go back and once you're getting those, you're nurturing those and making sure that you're following those through this. You have to answer the leads quickly. You have to once you do a proposal, you're following up on it. You have to have, we say here, you have to have a clear future on every customer. I'll email you and then just get back to me, email you the proposal and just get back to me when you're ready. No. There's a structured path for following up on those things. Your lead makeup has to be based upon lead generation services, mining your own customer database, and then going back and making sure that you're seeing all of those opportunities that come your way all the way through to the end. All of these things kind of play in more and more and more as you get bigger, because the leads are, if you double your size of your company, you cannot count on double the amount of leads being available to you to be able to make that growth happen. Just doesn't work.
Is there any, maybe one or two or three or whatever comes to mind, like specific templates or ways in which some contractors are designing these, outbounding campaigns or ways in which they're following up and nurturing leads that you find are working better than others?
What I see the best companies doing is they're saying, hey, if we have sort of an in-home first sale close policy with our sales folks, if that doesn't work within 48 hours, we're putting it into a process, be it Hatch or whatever process they have. And that customer is going to get outreach, from a manager type of profile, or at least they set it up that way to say, hey, you didn't move forward. We'd like to know why. And that happens for like at least 7 attempts to figure out what's going on. Because typically what happens is if they didn't buy right there on the spot, is they're probably shopping it. And it's probably because of, pricing or financing or whatever, the normal objections are. But unless you're surfacing those and sort of doing that over and over, you can't just do it with one. Every single person that gets a quote that didn't buy needs this experience. And the best folks are doing that and rinse and repeating it. And their close rates are, going up by 5 to 8%. That's sort of what I'm seeing across the board. So that's one. I think the second one that I'm seeing is customers that are targeting past quotes, like of people that bought, but maybe didn't buy the whole recommendation, right? And so these are like just past customers, and you're reaching out and you're saying, hey, what about this other thing we talked about, that you didn't move forward with? I'm just checking in on you. But if you do it in a rinse and repeatable way, they're building pipeline off that. And that's how they're getting, new leads when new leads in the market either dry up and that gets a pretty good response rate. And then from that response rate, we're having right now, our biggest growing products are AI agents that can go in and figure out the sentiment of that conversation. Is a customer still interested, but price is an issue? Okay, let's get it to the right person. Is it because they are out of the market and they moved on with a competitor? Okay, get that information and move that to either right person or discard it. And so, doing that in a rinse and repeatable way. Again, I'd say 7 touches over 2 weeks is where you're going to get. And then after 2 weeks, most of those people have moved on, or they're not going to do anything, but they're saving those contacts potentially for later conversations down the road. So like John said, like collect the data and be diligent about building that in the DNA, and then create a customer journey and make sure you have touch points along the way.
So you absolutely, what the 2 campaigns Chris talked about, I would hands down absolutely agree with him. That's exactly what you need to do. Follow up on those leads and use as many tools as you can to help you automate it and take the human capital out of it as much as you can. Back from there, so we set up a tune-up campaign, and we went back to customers we worked for that we hadn't been out to in like 2 years. In that, and we did a St. Patrick's Day tune-up campaign. We booked 700 tune-up appointments through that campaign. 700 appointments, and it's a lot, but we needed it at that time, and that cost us nothing but our time, because we already had that cost of our Hatch platform already built up. So like we talked about that. There are so many technology platforms you can invest money in these days. So many of them you don't necessarily need right away, but a system for nurturing and speed to lead similar to Hatch. We are a Hatch customer. We've been on Hatch for many months now. I think we started, Chris, with you guys at the beginning of the year. You cannot operate, I don't care what size you are, you cannot operate your business if you're serious about growth, or even in this environment, maintaining where you are, you can't do it without this type of a platform. You know, like our comfort consultants get 2, maybe 3 appointments in a day. A lot of our competitors will give people 8 to 10, 12 appointments per day. And those people are going in, they're writing it down on a piece of paper and leaving it and say, give me a call if you have any questions. They're not doing any follow-up. Their unique selling proposition is they're cheap. And you can play that game, but you can only play that game for a little while. The next time you have to invest in your growth, you're going to be wondering why I can't afford to add a new person. That's going to be the biggest challenge. So anybody can play in that cheap game when you're small. But as you get bigger and you start having to add infrastructure, it's going to be harder. And that's when every lead is going to count. Keep them. Those are your customers that you bought and paid for. Average cost for an LSA lead is about, for customer acquisition cost, about $300 to $400. So you've already spent. How many times do you want to, if you had to spend $300 to $400 and have it be cash every time, it'd be pretty painful. But we don't think about that with our customers once they're ours. You already paid for them. You've done the heavy lifting. Don't let them go. And that's where nurturing your customer base is something you absolutely need to do. And 100%, I agree. All those other technology things you maybe don't have to do, but something like Hatch is something you absolutely need to do. Right. 100%.
How did you, I guess, maybe just in your experience, like approach staffing to augment that?
I would say, probably, you're going to have, look, your call volume in the call center is not constant throughout the day. You're going to have ebbs and flows in your call center volume. Assign that to somebody in your call center to manage. Give them very narrow guide rails to follow. And don't ask the world of them, just a couple of things. And if you're working with a company like Hatch, they will help you build these campaigns. You're not going to have to do these all on your own. You guys, Chris, I could be wrong, but if to my recollection, you guys have a number of templates in place when we start up. Am I correct on that?
You do.
Yeah. So it doesn't take a lot. And if you, a lot of them have autoresponders because you need to respond to those when they come in. Making sure that you're utilizing those things. Again, that CSR might be the person that as you eventually scale up, they're going to be the person who might be your inside salesperson that might be a full-time thing for them after they've done it for a while and they've demonstrated competency in doing those things.
What are you noticing? Like now, obviously, the core functionality, the core kind of idea of what you guys are doing is everything we've talked about. It's nurturing, it's follow-up, it's outbounding, it's allowing people to go back to their existing customer base, et cetera. You mentioned something about, I think it was your AI agent earlier, but just curious. I guess you can answer it from a product standpoint, but I guess
right.
more, I guess take it how you want.
Well, I would say this. I think everybody on the call has played with ChatGPT, right? So like AI is real. I don't think it was two years ago, not at the extent at which it is now. And so there's just so much investment going into LLMs. And the reason that's even important to this industry is that some of the communication that we're talking about here can and probably should be automated, right? The back and forth, asking questions, to the customer, qualifying and disqualifying leads, figuring out if they're in your service area. These things are very expensive human interactions that can and should be automated. And so I'm spending a lot of my time. We started this investment probably about a year and a half ago when it wasn't really working. But now that it is, really rolling this out to customers and spending a lot of my time talking to them about the trouble that they're having to staff outbound CSRs and inbound CSRs. It's tough because I think frankly, with inflation, the rate of pay, it's hard to staff that at $30 an hour, and so, at $17 an hour, it kind of made sense, but, it's hard to find people to work for that rate anymore. And so there comes a point where you have to augment some of that. And so the change I'm seeing is companies, like John's, they're investing in $30 an hour people, but instead of hiring to scale this up, instead of doing, 5 CSRs, they're maybe trying to do it with 2 really good ones and use AI and where these folks are actually monitoring the AI and jumping in the right conversations at the right time, or letting the bot take it to the end zone in appropriate places. So they have sort of more reliable, high performers at a little bit higher rate, but they don't have to hire 5 people at $22 an hour, maybe 2 at 30. And so like, it's such an interesting change. And I think it's just going to keep evolving more toward that way, to where I guess, you know, people, the high performers are spending time on the right things, right? Which is driving revenue. And some of the sort of rinse and repeatable outbound actions and the disqualifying and the, you know, just the I'm not going to, you know, say simple stuff, but some of the rinse and repeatable stuff AI can handle. And so that's like the big conversation that's happening right now. And I'm spending most of my time there, and we're building toward that to help these companies accomplish it.
I see, and I don't think it's going to be very long. I think it's going to be within the next 6 to 12 months. You're going to have an AI that is going to be able to be your level 1 CSR. That is effectively vetting your calls, every call as it comes in, and they're transferring a warm lead over to a level 2 or level 3 CSR. And it's not, this AI is not going to replace people. You're going to allow your people to be able to do things that are a higher level of thinking.
Right.
Because the AI is not going to be able to do everything. So don't let your staff be scared about that. You want to grow, you want to do these things. Do you want to answer the phone and be yelled at by somebody because your technician, you gave them a time window between 8 and 10 and it's 8:30 and they're not there? You know, is that really what you want to deal with? You know, so yeah, it's coming, and it's going to come fast. The rate of change in our industry that is happening right now is at a level I don't think we could have ever identified that it was ever going to happen. And if you would have told somebody 2 years ago that you could have your call center ran by, you know, your level 1 CSRs be AI, they would say no way in hell. Now you look at it and it's
happening.
A lot more acceptable.
It's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.